Medellin is, as I said, a mile high. We have a river that goes through the valley, and we have very high up mountains up on each side of the valley. So this is at the very top of the valley, very high up, very poor neighborhood where we have had the poorest conditions and the most violent conditions in Medellin. Nobody would dare to go in there. In that place, we did, this is just an example because this happened all over, we did a new place, as I mentioned to you. We are going to build a public space where we are going to get together. So it used to be like that, at the edge of the mountain. We bought those houses. It was quite a problem. We tore them down. That's easy. Then we began building. That's what we are building. And then we finished. That's a very famous park library. All these little things that you see with the green and yellow colors are little enterprises, mostly created by women with our program, a social program that we had, helping people to participate in there. This wasn't a building that was finished, and we asked common people, poor people, come to see this beautiful building. They have been participating from day zero. And that building is a place where nothing has happened in there, no violent act has been there, and whoever gets into that building will never get into the violent world. Thank you very much.
Braddock, as I mentioned, is the poorest community in the region. That's not a typo. This is going to cause a lot of you from New York to go in this sticker shock. But the median price of a home in our town is under $4,800. The median household income, if you look at it, we're at $17,500, whereas Pennsylvania is at $45,000. So we're the poorest community in the region, and unemployment generally trends 300% higher than the national average. These are examples of Braddock's old architecture that are long gone, unfortunately. This building, actually, I'd like to point out in the presentations, is not in the process of being torn down. It actually fell apart after a storm. Old JCPenney store. This is Braddock's unique problem. What can be done, if anything, in a town that's lost 90% of its population? What can you do in a town that is racked by violence and many people have given up hope? We put all of our kids to work over the summer, over 100 kids. During the summer, if you put it on a per capita basis, it would be as if the city of Pittsburgh hired 10,000 kids. We repurposed abandoned structures and put stained glass, fixed up that church into a community center. Abandoned houses now repurposed to serve as housing for foster kids that have exited the system that otherwise would have been homeless. We take the largest vacant lot in our main thoroughfare, that's our main downtown drag, and we repurposed it as urban gardens. It's the only green space in Braddock. Braddock didn't have any parks or recreational facilities. Other vacant spots, urban agriculture. Braddock doesn't, as a food desert, does not have a market in town, a grocery store in town, I should say. So we have a 2-acre urban farm, creates jobs. Legacy arts, culture has been very important for our community. That's the new welcome to Braddock sign. It's 12 feet by 12 feet. Demonstration apiary. Bees love abandoned buildings who do. So instead of tearing them down with the buildings, we actually created our own apiary. So our bread oven culture. Again, Braddock, we have block parties now every year, whereas that didn't occur. Easter egg hunts for the kids. We make a big deal out of every holiday in town. During the summer months now, we send around an ice cream truck. Normally an ice cream truck would never go make the rounds in our community. We pay for all the ice cream up front, and it's handed out free to the children. I wrestle kids for a paycheck. and I've never lost. We opened the first art gallery in the area in an abandoned school. An arts collective, we were pilfering artists from New York City, actually. First grade business in the area. This is an example of urban homesteading. Buy this home for $5,000. You can see what little elbow grease and a DIY ethic can do for you. Kind of a headline sampling. I went to the Post-Gazette, Googled for the search for Braddock. These were the headlines that came up. Braddock was an extraordinarily It was not uncommon to have several homicides during the year, shootings, what have you. As of 2011, as you can see, with the introduction of culture and all these other aspects, we've had police calls drop now almost nearly 50%, and knock on wood, we've gone 3 years without homicide.
The challenges that we're faced with in the 21st century are going to require an incredible amount of creativity and innovation. Now, outside of Seattle, I am best known for the work that I've done on climate protection. But I have to confess to you that that was not at the top of my agenda when I was elected in November of 2001. It was a few weeks after 9/11, and the safety of the people of my community was on the front burner. It was the beginning of a very deep recession in our part of the world because we build airplanes in Seattle, and Boeing was laying off 30,000 people. The dot-com bust was occurring, and people weren't traveling, so waiters and people who worked at our convention center were being laid off. 100,000 people were laid off in that recession in our region. So getting people back to work and getting economic opportunities was the front burner. And like most people, I thought climate change was happening. I thought it was important as a human being that we do something to protect our climate. But I assumed we had smart people in Washington, D.C. working on the problem. And I thought we had the luxury of some time. And I was wrong. And for me, the aha moment came in the winter of 2004 and 2005, which in the Pacific Northwest was a very dry and a very warm winter. The ski season in the Cascade Mountains was canceled, which was a tragedy for thousands of people. For me as mayor, it presented a particular challenge because the snow in the Cascades, when it melts in the spring, we capture it and we use it for water for Seattle and for about 1 million people who live around Seattle. And we capture that snow melt, we run it through turbines that would create green electricity. So if there's no water, if there's no snow, there's no water, there's no power. It got to the point where the mayor of Tacoma, Washington, and I held a press conference where we urged people to shower together, and even in Seattle, that is considered a radical thought. So, it became clear to me that we were at risk. It wasn't just going to be people in hot places or really dry places, it was going to be everywhere. And so, that happened at the same time that a little treaty called the Kyoto Protocol was going into effect in 141 countries, but not in the United States of America. So I took the opportunity on that day to pledge that Seattle would reduce our carbon emissions by the amount called for in the Kyoto Treaty. And I knew as well that if it were just Seattle, we're a pretty small slice of greenhouse gas emissions in this world, and it would be purely symbolic. And as a mayor, I know that it's very difficult to get people to change their behaviors for purely symbolic reasons. And so I challenged mayors across the country to join with me in making that pledge. And before I left office at the end of 2009, 1,050 mayors had signed the pledge to reduce their emissions. Now, as I was urging those mayors to join with me, I took on a bit of a responsibility. And that was to kind of walk our talk, to show that it actually could be done. And so we went about it in a fairly disciplined manner. We decided first to lead by example. And the city government reduced its emissions by 60% from 1990 levels. We did it without eliminating basic services. We did it without breaking the bank. We showed that it could be done. Next, we engaged the leadership of the community, the political leadership, the environmental community leadership, the civic and business leadership, to draw up a plan for how we as a community of 600,000 people could reduce our emissions as we had promised. And then finally, when we had that plan, we engaged the entire community. We literally went door to door, talking to people about how they could change their individual behaviors, whether it was putting in different light bulbs or reducing the flow of their showers or putting in more insulation or what have you. They could take individual action that would make a difference, that could be emulated across their neighborhood, across our city, and across cities throughout America. And one of the things that you quickly understand is that cities play a vital role in this. Because most of the people on this planet now live in cities. First time in human history. And the vast majority of fossil fuels are burned in our cities because we are the economic engines in country after country after country. So the solution needs to happen in cities. Now that's okay because there's some very hopeful things about that. People who live in cities are more efficient. They have smaller carbon footprints than people who live on the outskirts of cities. And so we need to make our cities compelling places for people to want to live and work and play in closer proximity to one another.
Hi, my name is Marushka. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the creative director of a youth outreach group called the Good Makers Street Team. We're actually doing work with the Big Brothers Big Sisters group in Seattle right now, helping out with the Pete Carroll project.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to help that launch in June, and I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm from Los Angeles, and we're really big fans of what Seattle's doing, and we're trying to encourage more of that kind of policy in our